together. And divergent, the word part di means, hopefully you're able to understand that di is a number which is the number 2. And we'll look at those. First of all, convergent. Convergent is when individuals share similarities, but not because they're related. So not because they're related, but because they need certain adaptations to survive in their environment. You will have a test question on convergent evolution. So we're sharing similarities, not because we're related though. So for an example, that would be a dolphin and a shark. Those would be 2 examples because they're not related at all. Dolphins are mammals, sharks are cartilaginous, bony creatures, but both of them, and sharks, both of them have fins. Not because they're related, but because they need to adapt to their environment, which they live in the ocean, and they need to be able to swim. So their fins are a form of convergent evolution. A couple more creatures down here. We've got also penguins, and these creatures, they all have fins, but not because they're related, because they have to live in the same environment, and therefore having fins is not due to relationships, but because they all live in the same environment. Similar to humans, we all look alike. We all have hands, we all have feet, not because we're all related, but because we live in the same environment. Here's some more examples. You can write some of these down. It says, however, sharks are cartilaginous fish, dolphins are mammals, but they share similarities because they are living in the same life. Next one is divergence. Divergence is a process when one species begins to split into 2 groups. So remembering those word parts, di meaning 2. Divergence is when we're splitting into 2 groups with different traits. This may lead to speciation, and I have a spot there for you to write what is speciation, which means it's forming a new species. So this example is like dogs, like canines is what we call it. Canines all have different types, different distinct features, but we all started out as one that ended up evolving into each new characteristic on here. So we've got medium-sized legs. We've got really long legs here for this creature. We've got big ears for this canine, still part of the canine family. We've got really bushy coats of fur, all white. And then now we've got our domesticated animals right back here. So process in which one species splits into 2 distinct groups or multiple distinct groups. Here it is. All canines have long legs. They walk on their toes, but now we share characteristics due to the fact that we have a common ancestor this time. So divergent, that is a P, but here's a di, means common ancestor. And convergent is no shared relationships, just the same lifestyle. Just the same lifestyle. Remember those 2 things, please. All right, and lastly, we have a phylogenetic tree. A phylogenetic tree is something that we can use to trace back the history of an animal or the history of where it began, and you can make a phylogenetic tree for yourself as well. But we should be able to recognize what they're called and how to follow them. So right here in this one, is this picture a picture of convergent or divergent evolution? Go ahead and make your decision really quickly, and then I'll tell you the answer. We're starting with one ancestor, going up into a group, and we're splitting off into the same type of bird, but they have different characteristics, which means if they're coming from the same ancestor, this is going to be divergent evolution. This is also showing multiple or 2 or more splits. All right, last little bit of our notes is evidence to support evolution. We know that evolution exists because of these 4 things right here. This proves it for all of us. we don't know exactly, let's say, how exactly Earth was formed. We can make a guess on that. We can assume on that. We do know how long ago it was survived, or how long ago it came up, but we don't know exactly what it looked like back then or anything like that. So, evidence to prove that evolution exists are these things: fossil record, biogeography, anatomy and development, and lastly, molecular evidence. We're going to go into each one. First of all, our fossil record shows us how long the world has been around due to these creations in the dirt. This is how fossils create extinct animals, and that's how we know that they used to live here. We can also use the oldest fossils are found at the bottom, found down here, and you will have a test question on this. Where are the oldest fossils and where are the most recent ones? Your most recent is towards the top, and oldest ones are down here at the bottom. In our fossil record, this also provides us with two things, and this is the biggest part on here: gradualism and punctuated equilibrium. This is evidence for evolution, and gradualism is the evolution, meaning it is a gradual process, but it occurs continuously, not overnight. So it happens in a graph that looks like this, and it's going up, but it's happening over time. Punctuated equilibrium is a period of rapid change in a species. So we've got a species that's living just like this, and then all of a sudden, bam, a change. And it's just saying in a period of overnight, it will have no change, and then overnight, there is a rapid change, or spurts in evolutions, when organisms just suddenly appear in the fossil record. This happens usually due to climate changes. So there are two types of that fossil record showing, but gradualism is one of the ones that happen over time. Punctuated equilibrium is rapidly. So here are two of our models. The one on the left is showing gradualism. Gradually we are changing. And then on the right is punctuated. We start with this one, and all of a sudden change to an orange color, or all of a sudden change to a white and brown color. Next type, biogeography. Biogeography is the study of geographic distribution of these animals and fossils. So we use this to predict age and nature and location, and that's how we knew about these islands being close together at one point in time. But species tend to be more closely related to other species in the same area than to ones that live far away. For example, in South America, if you have a species of bird, you won't find the same exact species of bird in Australia, because species that are closely related are usually about in the same area, which is kind of showing a couple of things here in this South America, Africa region that used to be together. All right. Anatomy and development. We've got this three types of anatomy and development, which can show more. Remember, we're showing evidence of evolution, and another way we can show that things evolve or things change is due to homologous, analogous, and vestigial structures. We're talking about the structure of an organism. In homologous structures, this shows, you'll have a lot of questions about this on your test, but this shows that there is a common ancestor because there is similar structure. You know what the word homo means. Homo means, you should have already said same. And if homo means same, and we're talking about homologous structures, we're talking about the same structure. So, for example, we've got the homology of different arm types. First of all, we've got a salamander up here at the top, a lizard right here in the second one, a possum right here, and then lastly, one of our hands right here. This shows similarity due to the evolution of a common ancestor. Actually, this one might not be ours, but we've got an ulna and a radius on this side on both of these animals, are on this animal, and then you have a humerus up here at the top, showing, and then all of a sudden up here as well, we have phalanges, which are showing that um, they have the same structure. The other thing is they have different functions. So in homologous structures, if they have the same structure, they're going to have different functions because some of these animals use to walk on four legs. Some of these animals use it to grab things, like with opposable thumbs. Here's a couple more. So it's showing that there's a humerus, a radius, and an ulna, and you have carpals and phalanges all on each of these organisms, but they're used for different things. A bat has the same thing, but a bat uses it to fly. Analogous structures, the exact opposite of homo. So analogous would be different structures. So that means that they're not related, different structures, and they have the same functions. For example, a bird wing and a butterfly wing. These two species are not related to each other, but they have the same wing, different structures. They both are using them to fly, but they are different structures. So you're going to have to make sure you point that out on your test as well. Another example would be a hedgehog and a cactus. Both of them, one of them is an animal, first of all, but both of them have spikes on them. Whether it's a cactus or an animal, there's my hedgehog right there with 4 legs. But both of them have thorns, but it's due to protect them. So that is the same function, but they're different structures. We've got bones on this creature and plant on this creature. So there's a couple of pictures for you as well. My last thing on notes is that we're talking about vestigial structures serve no purpose at all. No useful purpose. Right here we have on a whale, they have a hip bone or a pelvis bone that is not connected to anything. It serves no purpose for this whale. For us, it helps us stand upright. But on a whale, for some reason, they have one. This is why some theories, again, they're theories, are saying that humans may have come from whales because we have hip bones like this, and so do they, but they don't have any purpose for theirs, which ended up coming to be ours. Now, you could say the same thing the other way around. If they don't use theirs and we use ours, then they came from us. But again, these are just theories. So this is proving to us that evolution does exist. Somehow things come from other things. And the example of this hip bone shows that this guy is not using his, but somehow many creatures on the other side of it use theirs and could have gotten it from them. An appendix is something that's called a vestigial structure. You're going to have a question on this definition of what a vestigial structure would be in a few examples, A, B, C, and D. Tonsils, you don't absolutely need these two things to survive. Therefore, they serve no useful purpose. Lastly, canine teeth, those molars in the back of your mouth, you, again, don't need them. A couple more examples of vestigial structures. And then lastly, our last evidence of evolution, which is our most scientific and most proven way, is molecular evidence. All organisms have DNA and therefore share some form of common ancestor. And some organisms have different, very, very different and very similar DNA, which can tell us how closely related they are. So we all make proteins. We all have proteins that help us perform daily functions. And some of us use very different proteins and some of us use very same proteins for the same thing. So we look at the amino acids that each organism uses to compare. For example, our comparison up here is when we look at what amino acids we're creating, humans create these amino acids. And we can look to see who is really closely related to us based on the ones that create the same amino acid on the same number to see who is closely related to us. If you can, take a look at that and see who is the most closest related to humans. All right. Last thing is, now I'm going to have you finish your book. On your book, you have these different pages. You can come back to this and use it as a resource, but pages 1 through 4 need to be about the very beginning